Hello, everyone, and welcome to Plug and Play's Net Zero Innovation event. We are very excited and we are going to have a lot of fun today. There's so much momentum around reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050 that this topic we feel is super important for everyone from corporations to startups. My name is Nick Chow. I am leading our sustainability efforts out here in Europe, based in Paris, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. And so net zero, we know it's such a broad topic with countless challenges, countless solutions. And we know that we're not going to be able to cover everything today. However, we are really excited to be joined by an amazing group of speakers who will share their net zero strategies, best practices on net zero innovation, and how the entire community from corporations to SMEs, startups, play a role in the net zero transition. Also, you will hear from 4 startups that are providing solutions that will accelerate this transition to a net zero economy, whether it's internal tracking tools, integrations for product teams, also technology like direct carbon capture and electric Hyperloop for more difficult to abate carbon emissions. But before we jump in, I am going to give a quick overview of Plug and Play for those who don't know. And so Plug and Play is the world's largest global innovation platform. We run over 60 different accelerator programs across over 33 cities. We work with over 300 corporate partners by fueling their innovation strategies, and we invest in over 200 startups per year. And our history dates back to the 1990s when our CEO, Saidi Mehdi, was lucky enough to invest and house companies like Google, Logitech, PayPal, Danger, and we have evolved over the years by following our mission. And so our goal is really to help the world progress through innovation and connection. And for this to happen, we believe that innovation should be accessible for anyone and anywhere, which is why we continue to grow this global platform. We work with over 400 corporate partners who are coming to us to connect with startups for business challenges that they have, or aligned with specific technology focus areas. And we work with an amazing ecosystem of startups and corporates every year that we help source, vet, and help scale along their startup journey. And we are doing this globally across these different locations to really have that global scale at a very tailored and localized level. We have 18 themed innovation platforms where we're bringing together corporations and startups, and sustainability is just one of our latest platforms that we launched late last year in 2019. In sustainability, we're focusing on things like ending plastic waste, carbon reduction, water resiliency, and ways to accelerate a circular economy. And before we get into the content, just one housekeeping item. There will not be any Q&A for this event. So we are actually having a virtual networking session right after this for 30 minutes. And we have the link to join. I think it's right there in the chat. So we'll add it there. We'll remind you periodically, but we hope to see you there. The speakers will be there. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience that would be great to connect with. So please join us after this. But that's enough of me. You'll see me later on. I am really excited to introduce our first speaker, Veronique Hervoet, who is the head of new business models from Total, really focusing on refining and chemicals. She'll be walking us through their innovation strategy when it comes to net zero. Veronique, take it away.
Good afternoon to you all, wherever you are. Hope you are safe. Thank you, Nick and Plug and Play, for this opportunity to share about how Total is tackling net zero innovation. Indeed, a very big challenge. So we'll try, considering the time that we have, we'll try to focus. And my first focus would be on refining and chemicals, the branch I'm currently working for. And for refining and chemicals, working towards net zero means 3 major approaches: avoid emissions, reduce or reuse, capture. All those concerns our operations, but we also think about our customers and our products, where we work hard to reduce the carbon intensity of our products. So the first 3 have to do with Total's operations. For those who are familiar, that's scope 1 and 2. The last one is scope 3. That's for our customers. Of course, all those, our targets are for 2050. So how do we go about a few examples about avoiding emissions when your operations are refining and chemicals? One example is substituting gray hydrogen that we use for our refining operation. We import some gray hydrogen. We would substitute it for green hydrogen. That's one way to avoid emitting CO2. Other ways to avoid emission is other type of substitution. I mean, for example, when we use fuel to fuel some power generating equipment, we could go for green electricity and substitute those fuel for green electricity. Reduction is very much about energy efficiency. That's something which is absolutely not new for Total, but we give it a new twist, trying to leverage as far as possible all the opportunities that are brought together by digital technologies. So energy efficiency works very well with digital technologies deploying in an industrial environment. Capture is also another way to go to reduce, I mean, to lower the carbon emission. Here, we are leveraging the work done by our colleagues in the gas, renewable and power branch that are working already on large CCS projects. One of them is in Norway, it's the Northern Line project, Northern Lights project. We are using similar approach to work with partners to capture CO2 emission from our Antwerp refinery, together with other large emitters nearby in the Antwerp port area. Now, when it comes to going to low carbon solutions for our products, I would like to give you 3 examples that are directly illustrated by a new project that Total has very recently announced. That new project is to take one of our existing oil refinery, a refinery nearby Paris in Grand Puy. We will close down the refining operation in that site, and that site is going to be repurposed and will be fully zero oil industrial platform. So not a drop of oil will go on this site starting from next year, and we are developing 4 low carbon industrial projects. One of them will be about renewable diesel. We will leverage our experience in La Mède biorefinery, where we hydrotreat vegetable oil and waste. We would do the same in Grand Puy and produce biojet for aviation, which is in high demand, so very much a low carbon product. Another project which will build on our early experience with our partner Corbion, it's about biopolymer, bioplastics. We have a successful JV in Thailand with Corbion, and we are duplicating that plant, and a second plant will be in Grand Puy. So another low carbon solution. Here it's in bioplastics. Third example, it's plastics recycling. We are going to bring plastic waste that are currently going to landfill or incineration, and we will upgrade those plastic waste into pyrolysis oil. We have set up a JV with the British startup company Plastic Energy, which has developed a technology for pyrolysis of waste plastics and has 2 plants in operation in Spain. So we will build, that will be a first in France, of pyrolysis of plastic waste. And then the pyrolysis oil that will be produced from that plant will be shipped to one of our refinery and steam cracker operation to go back to polymer. So another example of low carbon and circular solution that is going to be deployed at industrial scale in that new site, which was formerly an oil refinery activity. And last, also, we will have a solar power, I mean, a renewable electricity project on that site that will complete the global picture. So all in all, in that Grand Puy former oil refinery, we will invest over $500 million into new low carbon businesses at industrial scale. So I believe those are interesting illustration on how Total is going full speed and at full industrial scale towards deploying new business models and technology that will enable to go to net zero innovation. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Veronique. Appreciate you sharing, and it's really interesting to see entire project and that scope over the next couple of years. Next up, we have a fireside chat with Ian Cavaney, Head of Tech for Good at BT, talking about some best practices, how BT as a telco positions themselves in sustainability, and a lot more. So we'll get right to it. All right, super excited to have you join us, Ian. We're just going to jump right into things. So if we can just get started with a quick introduction on yourself and just your role at BT.
Yeah, hi Nick, good to be with you today. So yeah, I'm Ian Caveney, I'm Head of Tech for Good at BT. So that means I work with the commercial parts of the company to help try and embed tech that either has a positive social impact or, for example, can drive a positive environmental impact, like the Green Tech Innovation Platform that I manage.
Perfect. And I'm really excited because I feel like most people kind of overlook telcos as a player for this net zero transition, but I really disagree, and I think it's really interesting kind of that positioning. So can you tell us a little bit more about how BT sees this opportunity, how their role, what's their role that they play in when it comes to reducing carbon?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think telcos have a massive role to play, and I think about the fixed and mobile networks that we have are a massive enabler to help drive a massive difference in terms of green tech. And our products and services have been making a difference for many years. For example, last year, our products and services helped our customers save 13 million tons of carbon. And that's for things just like cloud computing, video, and teleconferencing. And that's like the equivalent of the power that it takes to run 3 million UK homes. So there's a massive material impact and benefit from that in its first place. But also what's really interesting is it's good for business too. Through our energy efficiency programs, where we've been driving down our own carbon consumption, we saved around £340 million since 2009. So, you know, it's kind of the facts and the benefits are already there. And I think as we come out of COVID, there's even a bigger opportunity to obviously build back better, but also build back greener too.
Yeah, and I think I love that kind of that influencer aspect to what you guys do, that infrastructure aspect. It kind of reminds me of how financial services plays a role. And so can you share some of the work that BT is doing around their net zero?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people in BT, this feels like one of our best hidden stories. I mean, we feel like we've been leading climate change for over 28 years. You know, we were one of the first companies to set science-based targets. We've pledged to be a net zero carbon emissions business by 2045, and we also have a target to reduce the impact of our products and services by 1.5 degrees in line with the Paris Agreement. So, you know, there's lots of things we do in relation to that, but there's lots of things that any company can do in relation to this as well. So think about, for example, moving to renewable electricity. We've recently announced that we're now 100% worldwide in relation to our electricity and energy consumption. And equally, we have in the UK the second largest vehicle fleet. So we have a key drive to sort of transition to EVs and other forms of clean transport in relation to that as well.
Very cool. Yeah, the transition to EVs, I think, will be massive.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, yeah.
And so that's a good transition into more the innovation side of things. And obviously reducing carbon emissions, there's a bunch of different angles, lots of different opportunities to take. How did you guys from the innovation side identify some of those areas and prioritize which ones you want to focus on when it comes to innovation and working with startups?
Yeah, it's really important that you spend time up front doing that. So I spend a lot of time, so actually a bit of background, so because I work in the sustainability part of BT, that I'm not going to be responsible for delivering propositions or services. So I spend a lot of time working in collaboration with the commercial parts of the business and specifically with our enterprise division. And what I've done is essentially align what we want to achieve within green tech to, you know, their own core business growth areas such as all IP, IoT, 5G. So we've got some clear sort of business opportunities to focus on. Then the second bit that we really had to do is then look at how we can support different types of customers. Through the discussions we had, it became quite obvious actually that, interestingly, the public sector and local councils and public services providers like the NHS provided us with good opportunity. for one, they have, like BT, ambitious climate targets in place, which is good. So they understand the importance and role of climate change. Secondly, a lot of them are really incredibly forward thinking actually in terms of what they do, and are open to working in collaboration and trying new things. And then thirdly, it's a bit of a challenge, but in the sense of, because the sector is pretty cash strapped, if you can make products and services work in that area, then actually once we want to scale out our products and services into other commercial areas, it should hopefully be easier. So yeah, it's important that you really embed what you're doing in the business and get that sort of right alignment throughout what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a unique approach. I feel like a lot of times some people might start with something that's maybe easier and then go into harder, but if you can solve it in the hard one, everything else is downhill, which is
that's the hope. But yeah, I mean, it's never easy. I mean, I think, you know, having the customer in mind is really key. Is, you know, that fact of answering their problems and addressing their problems is what gets you movement, you know.
Yeah, I love the collaboration between you guys and the partners. I think that's a super important thing. So I appreciate that. When it comes to advice for other innovation teams, I mean, there's people that are on different parts of this journey when it comes to the net zero transition. Maybe what would be your advice to specifically innovation teams on tackling net zero initiatives? Maybe the ones that are just starting out, trying to figure out how they ingrain it in their company.
Yeah, well, I suppose it brought us to try and capture what I just said. So I suppose number one, try and make sure you are solving a specific customer problem or issue, and kind of have a clear brief and outcome that's driving your work. You know, you kind of have to have a good old brief and a clear outcome clearly defined. I think is critical here, like any project. And when it is around net zero, I think what you can't do is think about net zero in isolation. So definitely you need to combine those environmental benefits with the financial benefits and kind of bring that story together. It's very rarely you're going to have a product or service that is just going to work on an environmental impact alone. So you've really got to make sure that you are helping the customer in as many ways as you can as possible, basically. And then thirdly, I suppose it depends on what part of the business you're in. So for me, coming from a sustainability angle, you know, what was actually most important for me was to make sure that I actually had people in the commercial and marketing and product parts of the business actually owning and driving this work as well. You know, they're the ones who are responsible for developing propositions. They're the ones responsible for developing commercial relationships, and so you need them on board. But you know, it is all about how you work collectively together to drive those solutions. But you know, if you think you can do this just from a sustainability or CSR perspective, you know, you're not going to get very far.
And so maybe my last question is, are there any areas that you're particularly excited to watch over the next 5-10 years?
Well, I find it hard to concentrate beyond the next 3 months, but let alone the next 10 years. But I think, yeah, actually, I mean, on that, I think I'm actually really excited about what's happening now in the sense of how we can build a green recovery from COVID-19. But I suppose longer term, yeah, I think the move to EVs, clean transport and autonomous vehicles, it's fascinating. I think it's going to have such a profound impact on society as a whole, actually, in terms of how we do things, how we get around. And you know, obviously it's got a massive opportunity to help us from an environmental perspective as well. So, you know, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. And, you know, just thinking about my own kids, you know, are they going to need to learn to drive? Are they just going to hop in an autonomous car? You know, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it will be. I think we're all waiting for that one. That will be nice. Well,
definitely.
Is there any last final words that you'd like to share with the audience, leave us with? Yeah,
well, I suppose I think to see what's happening around the green recovery as a massive opportunity for tech innovation and to do things differently and to do new things. I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a better time to drive it. And equally, we don't have time to wait either in terms of tackling the climate crisis. So yeah, just get out there, do things. I mean, fail fast, you know, as well. You know, those are things that you should be considering as well in what you're doing.
Yeah, love it. That's great advice. Thanks, Ian. I mean, that's our time for today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts, sharing your experience, sharing some insight, and looking forward to hearing more about what PT and you guys do.
Yeah, thanks. And it's been great speaking to you too. All the best.
All right. It's always great talking to Ian. I love how they're thinking, their approach, their positioning within this whole net zero transition. But next up, we have a panel discussion with Majda Dabagi, the Director of Inclusive and Green Growth at the International Chamber of Commerce, and Johan Falk, the co-founder of the Exponential Roadmap, really sharing their perspective of what they're doing beyond just the corporate innovation side and really looking at the entire value chain of SMEs and startups, and a lot of interesting ideas of where this space is going in the next couple of years. All right, super excited to have you guys. I think we'll jump right in and start with a round of introductions. So Majda, Johan, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your organization does in relation to net zero innovation.
Great, yes. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. My name is Majda Dabagi, and I am the Director of Inclusive and Green Growth for the International Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest business organization in the world with over 45 million companies. And I'm really pleased to be working with Johan Falk of Exponential Roadmap on the SME Climate Hub.
Great, and I'm Johan Falk. It's great to be here. So I'm heading up the Exponential Roadmap initiative, which is bringing together organizations and companies which are aligned with the 1.5 ambition and exponential thinking. So we're also behind the Exponential Roadmap and the 1.5 business playbook. We also co-created the SME Climate Hub with ICC, Majda, and the 1.5 supply chain leaders.
Perfect. Well, I love your guys' initiative. Super excited to really just jump into things. And so both of you guys are coming together, working together on SME Climate Action Hub. Tell me a little bit more about what that is, why it's important to this transition.
Yeah, sure. I can start maybe with that one. Well, we've seen that a lot of supply chain leaders are making bold climate targets, but in order to achieve those ambitions, they really have to work across the whole value chain and really address their scope 3 emissions. So that will mean that they have to kind of work hand in hand with the suppliers, and especially SME suppliers who don't often have, sustainability teams that can be dedicated to really aligning with the goals that the supply chain leaders have set in terms of climate targets. So one of the things that the SME Climate Hub tries to do is help small and medium-sized businesses that are part of a value chain to really align with their supply chain leaders' goals, whether it's a 2030 goal, a 2040 goal, or a 2050 goal. But beyond that, there are also over 400 million small and medium-sized businesses in the world. It represents really 90% of business globally. And these small and medium-sized enterprises employ over 2 billion people. They're really the backbone of the global economy. And if we are to have meaningful change with respect to being able to curb emissions and really achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, then we need to support and mobilize those small and medium-sized businesses to take climate action. And that's really what the SME Climate Hub is all about. Ultimately, it's providing the tools and the resources to help SMEs curb their emissions, but also build resilience and gain a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that is a staggering stat that you just mentioned, and I love the initiative. I love what you guys are working on. So I'm curious to hear whether you think there'll be kind of different phases of this transition that we can see over the next 30 years, and if so, how would you describe the phase we are in today?
Absolutely. So I think the key point is now the laser focus on the next 10 years. and to put our absolute effort in this first halving. So from a company perspective, you need to break down what does it mean basically to halve emissions in 8 years or so. Well, for 10 years, it's at least 7 to 15% per year basically in decarbonization. And some areas are more straightforward, like moving to renewable electricity and fossil-free transportation and so on. And some might be more difficult, that transforming to new type of materials. But you also, as a company, have to look over your business model, how you can become more efficient, going from ownership models to shared models and so on, which is basically a way to reduce emissions sufficiently.
No, I completely agree with what Johan has just described. And I would just say, in addition, that it's really important to think of the net zero targets as the hard stop date. But we know that climate change is affecting us today, and we need to take action today. And I think there's never been a more important time to start really focusing on curbing emissions from a business perspective in a really serious way, to ensure that companies are resilient to external threats. I think the pandemic that we're all living through right now is proof positive that resilience is going to be extremely important for businesses to survive external shocks in the future and really thrive well into the future as well.
And so maybe as we wrap up, we'd love to get a few final words to leave us with. Maybe if you both can share a few final thoughts.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's critical that businesses that are listening in today, whether they're large multinational corporations or startups, that they take a first step towards climate action, and that is making a commitment, and then start today by taking one concrete step towards achieving that target. Johan has led a fantastic initiative out of the Exponential roadmap called the 1.5 Business Playbook that really outlines in simple steps the kind of strategy that a company can follow in order to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. And there's another fantastic initiative of Johan's is the Supply Chain Leaders Group that are really working with their entire value chain to achieve climate targets. And if you're a startup, a green solution provider, a small business listening in today, my message is go onto the SME Climate Hub, make your commitment, and start using the tools that will help you have a better business ultimately.
Yeah, thanks for that, Marta, as well. As Marta said, I think every company should and even must integrate climate in their strategy, and the timing is right now, both to contribute, but also to be able to compete. We see a tremendous and absolute shift in the economy, and the new growth will come from solutions which is good for the climate and nature. That is where the growth is. So it's a tremendous opportunity for company, not only to contribute to the transformation, but actually to grow over time, and not at least to recruit people. I mean, we see most of the young people, at least in our region, put the requirement on companies that the companies need to integrate climate in their strategy and have that as part of their business idea to actually work there. So this will happen very quickly. And of course, finance is shifting very, very quickly to shift their investments to companies, both large and small companies, which are aligned with climate and the 1.5 ambition. So I think that is the key message from my perspective. And join the race so we can become the critical mass.
Well, I love those final messages. I wanted to thank both of you for joining, sharing your thoughts. Super inspirational. I love the focus that you guys have and the initiatives that you guys have. We're happy to share a few pieces of content as well from you guys, so everyone in the audience can get access to it, can link to it, go directly after this. And I'm expecting we're going to see a lot more from you guys as well. So again, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. It's always interesting to see how different people are playing within the ecosystem. And for all the startups out there, we have the link to the SME Climate Action Hub and some resources that Majda and Johan passed along. So feel free to check it out in the chat. Next up is going to be our startup pitch session. We'll be listening to different startups innovating and helping make this transition to net zero a reality. And quick heads up to everyone, right after these startups pitch, there'll be 15-20 seconds where there'll be a pop-up. You'll be able to let us know if you're interested in connecting with them through an email intro. So please provide that feedback. We're all about making collaboration happen. So feel free to use that poll. Also, these startups will be there in the networking session after if you have any questions or you want to meet them in person, or virtual, I should say. First up, we have Climeworks, who will be talking to us about how they're reversing climate change using direct air carbon capture.
Hey there, my name is Nino. I'm a sales manager at Climeworks, and I want to show you why it is important to use air captured CO2 for your CCO process. What you can see in this picture is the world's first commercial direct air capture plant that we operate at the moment in Zurich, Switzerland. It consists of several so-called CO2 collectors. Each one of them, as you can see, has a fan attached to it. And what it does, it filters CO2 from the air around us. If we take a closer look, the basic principle behind such a collector is actually quite simple. So air is drawn into the collector, where a very special kind of filter material also very selectively only captures the CO2 molecules. In the second step, we add low-grade heat to that, which releases the CO2 again from the material. And then after that, we basically have two different kinds of products. So we have the pure CO2, the industrial gas, the physical gas that you can use for further processing. But we also have CO2-free air that we offer to our customers as a service. And this is what we call carbon dioxide removal, which is basically a premium carbon credit that we offer to private individuals and companies to reach their climate targets. How does carbon dioxide removal actually works? So this is the setup we have in Iceland. We have a Climeworks plant that filters CO2 from the air. That Climeworks plant is run by renewable energy from a geothermal power plant. The concentrated CO2 is mixed together with water and then pumped underground. There we have, due to volcanic activity, we have first basaltic rock formation. This is very important with a lot of metal oxides in it. We also have high temperatures and high pressures on the ground. And these are factors that very much allows us to turn the gaseous CO2 that we captured from the air, turn that into carbonate minerals. So we turn CO2 from the air into stone. And as you can imagine, this process is very precise because we can, with the flow meter inside our direct air capture plant, we can measure exactly how much CO2 that we captured, and then how much CO2 is permanently stored and safely stored away from the atmosphere. This is a picture of the geothermal power plant. You can see here, you have the injection wells on the right side. You have we have a drill core. Gray is the basaltic rock with the different pores you can see inside that pores. Is the white spots. Are the carbonate minerals, so the CO2 turned into stone. And this process happens very fast. So within only 2 years, the CO2 is mineralized completely. If we're looking at CCU, we see the biggest potential in the production of renewable fuels in the future. And to produce these kind of fuels with direct air capture technology is actually quite simple. So you have a direct air capture plant at the beginning that provides the CO2. And on the other hand, you have, for example, an electrolyzer that provides the hydrogen, also renewably produced with renewable electricity. You put that together to form for the first time a liquid. So you have like a synthetic crude oil, so to say. And this crude oil can be refined within the existing refining infrastructure that we have from the big oil companies, and can be turned into different kinds of fuels: kerosene, gasoline, diesel, or basically all carbon-based products that we have today. So, for example, kerosene that is emitted during the combustion of an airplane, and the emitted amount of CO2 equals the amount that has been captured before, and therefore these kind of fuels are fully carbon neutral, fully circular. The main advantage of that of direct air capture CO2 for your CCU process is that we can close the carbon cycle with it. And why is that important? If we look into the future, by 2050, the world needs to reach net zero emissions. So we cannot emit a single ton of CO2 into the atmosphere anymore. So we need to go to a fully circular economy. And if we look at fuels that are produced from emission sources today, for example, from point sources, which are mainly carbon-based or fossil-based, sorry, they capture the CO2 and they turn it into a fuel, they recycle it, but then during the combustion, the CO2 is released again into the atmosphere. And this process accumulates still the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere. And yeah, by 2050, by reaching net zero, we cannot do that anymore. So these fuels need to come from a sustainable CO2 source like the air. Yeah, thank you very much.
Some amazing technology there, really impactful. You should see it pop up on your screen. Maybe another 5 more seconds. Let us know if you're interested in connecting with Climeworks. Next up, we have startup Patch, who is calculating the company's emissions and making any transaction climate positive for any product team.
Hello everyone, my name is Brennan Spalacy, and I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Patch, a platform for negative emissions. More than ever, businesses are being pressured to operate sustainably. This means they need to both quantify, reduce, and offset their carbon footprint. What Patch aims to do is to make that last component, the offsetting of their carbon footprint, as simple as possible. The way Patch accomplishes this is we partner with a wide variety of negative emissions projects, from direct air carbon capture to enhanced weathering. We then load these projects onto Patch's platform and expose their inventory via API. Technology enabled businesses that can now transact with these projects through Patch's gateway. This unlocks a whole new suite of climate positive products that can be built. Some of Patch's earliest customers are e-commerce platforms enabling carbon neutral shipping for their merchants, to institutional banks unlocking climate positive credit and debit products. Now I'll head on over to Patch's dashboard. Here on the Projects tab, you can see the wide variety of Patch's projects. This is how the CO2 actually gets taken out of the atmosphere. Heading on over to the API Keys tab, I'll switch to test mode and actually take my personal API key so we can place an order via API. I'll copy that to the clipboard and head on over to the terminal. As you can see here, I have Patch's Ruby gem already loaded. I'll paste my test API key in and actually place an order. So the time you would create a patch order is whenever your transaction is confirmed and you know the impact of that associated transaction. So perhaps that's the proof of delivery for a package. That might be when a credit card transaction clears and you estimate the footprint. There's loads of different types of events that might actually trigger creating a patch order. And here I'll actually attach some metadata with the reason demo. And I'll pull out the data. And just like that, we've created a patch order and taken CO2 out of the air. So we're super excited to see what you build with Patch's API. If you'd like access, head on down to usepatch.com and request access by putting your email address here. Otherwise, if you have any questions, want to figure out how to build something, or just want to chat, feel free to send me an email at brennan@usepatch.com. Thanks so much for watching. We can't wait to see what you build.
That's amazing. So easy to use, so easy to integrate. Love it. Feel free to let us know in the pop-up if you're interested in connecting with Brennan. Next up, we have Zeleros, the future of transportation, building a Hyperloop. This is going to be an exciting one.
Hi everyone, I'm David Pistoni and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zeleros Hyperloop. We are the European company based in Spain, leading the development of a sustainable and scalable Hyperloop. What is exactly Hyperloop? Hyperloop is basically a train levitating inside a tubing vacuum. In this way, we can achieve speeds up to 1,000 kilometers per hour with low energy consumption. We are also protecting the vehicle from external conditions, and we are 100% electric. Hyperloop is the perfect solution to complement the current transportation systems, connecting distances between the 400 and 1,500 kilometers, and combining the best from the railway and aerospace industries. But the question is, why now Hyperloop if it's actually a 200 years old idea? And we see many reasons. As decarbonization needs we have today, socio-demographic changes we are suffering, and the air traffic saturation we suffered last years. Also green commitment investments, and important that the technology is already available in other industries. And the challenge now is to integrate these technologies in a new mean of transportation and make it safe for passengers and cargo. Elon Musk noticed this some years ago and organized an international competition to find the best Hyperloop solution. We participated and we won the best Hyperloop proposal prize and the best Hyperloop propulsion system. And today we are Zeleros Hyperloop. We have our own vision of this technology with our partners and our own technology to make it real. This is a long distance race, and there are different players around the world in this kind of technologies. It is important to cooperate in order to find common standardization frameworks and common regulations to guarantee that we can use Hyperloop around the world using the same base for the technology. What makes us different from other Hyperloops? Our unique proposal is based on including most part of the technology inside of the vehicle instead of the infrastructure. In this way, we reduce the infrastructure cost and components along the whole infrastructure, and we have also safer pressures for the passengers, closer than airplanes instead of aerospace conditions. We can see some figures here comparing how we can reduce infrastructure costs with our technology compared with the levitation trains we can find in China or Japan. This is a key element, as the 95% of the overall cost of these projects are based on the infrastructure. Today, we are an incredible team formed by engineers, researchers, business experts, and we are also cooperate with different research centers and industries. We have support of our investors coming work from different places around the world. And the important part of this slide is we are a big ecosystem We know that this is a big project and we need to cooperate to make it real. Regarding the business model, this is similar as the high-speed trains. There is not just one company developing the whole project, but a consortium of different companies cooperating to execute these Hyperloop routes. We will be the manufacturer of this vehicle, and today we are cooperating and we are coordinating the whole development. Hyperloop routes are the main goal of our company, but we have also different scenarios in which we are applying our technology as the cargo launchers to move containers between ports and airports, and also we are applying our levitation systems to other industries. We already finished our validation and optimization of the key elements and technologies of the vehicle, and we are ready for the next milestone. That is the construction of a European Hyperloop center in Spain next year. Then, after validating and optimizing the technologies in operational conditions, we will scale the technology first for cargo and then for passengers. We are closer than ever to our vision of connecting the world as a metro line but at high speeds, and we believe that Celeros technology is the best alternative to do it, as we have scalable and safe technology for this new mean of transportation. Thank you very much. I will be happy to get in touch, and thank you from Celeros team.
I'm a big fan of Celeros. It truly is the future of transportation. Please use the poll now that should be on your screen if you're interested in an email introduction. And next up, we have Plan A, who is measuring and reducing a company's emissions because you can't fix what you can't measure.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be able to tell you the story of how I end up doing what I'm doing. It all started on a beach like this, where for 1 week, I was able to see the causes and effects of climate change. My life fundamentally changed after this experience, and I decided that I needed to become part of the solution to this problem that we were facing. I decided to start recycling, stopped eating meat, started cycling to work, and introduced all these sustainability activities in my life. And it took time and effort, years and years, only to find out that my impact was that big. As much as I was satisfied and excited about the progress that I was making, the truth was that my impact was not merely enough to be able to address climate change. Well, imagine if it takes so much time and effort for an individual, what does it mean for a business? If you are a business, you need to know your carbon footprint. You need to reduce your carbon footprint because the regulator said so. You need to report on your carbon footprint in very particular formats and in different frequency according to your geography. You need to engage your stakeholders because your consumers, your employees are asking more clarity about your commitments. And all of this needs to be meaningful because offsetting is not enough, or a single CSR program isn't enough. Is this voluntary? No. Overwhelming, isn't it? Well, we thought it was overwhelming as well and decided to find a solution for businesses to package in one single product, something that can help them with all of these challenges. And we found the answers in science. We are a group of 25 individuals, experts in machine learning, climate data science, climate modeling, life cycle analysis, all gathered by the belief that companies should be enabled to manage their sustainability smoothly. And this is where our product Plan A comes in play. Plan A has developed a software that enables companies to measure their carbon footprint and automatically collect the data to be able to do so, monitor their carbon footprint, and see on a granular level how they're performing, reduce their carbon footprint, and see what kind of actions they need to take according to their data, engage, and do it in a manner that both their employees and consumers are informed. And finally, all of this is built in accordance to all the sustainability standards that are out there that enables the company to be compliant. Our end-to-end platform focuses on automating the data collection process and to then enable the company to reduce its CO2 emissions and costs effectively. So far, we've been able to serve more than 200 businesses in less than a year. And some of these businesses include BMW Foundation, BCG, football clubs, educational institutions, startups, event organizers, clubs. And all of this has enabled them not only to work on their sustainability agenda, but also to address another type of risk that they know they're facing. If you're still not sure if this applies to your company, consider the fact that every single company is going to have to comply to new laws with regards to reporting within the next 3 to 5 years. Access to funding is going to be dependent and is already dependent on your sustainability commitments. Your public credibility is at stake in case you don't decide to take actions on your sustainability. And finally, and most importantly, your license to operate is at stake, because no company that is not deciding to be sustainable is going to be able to operate. If my knowledge was this big and my impact was this big some years ago, today it looks like this, because of all the compiled effort and impact that has been made by us and our clients. If you want to be part of the club and join us, because there's no plan B for the planet, get in touch.
I love the different features for all the different business units within an organization. Please use the pop-up if you're interested in an email introduction. Next up, we have Journey Foods, who is solving food science and supply chain inefficiencies with enterprise software.
Happy Thursday, everyone. My name is Rihanna Lynn. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Journey Foods. And I'd love to tell you more about Journey Foods and how we're bringing data to companies so that they can save time and money on getting better products to millions of consumers every day. We've recently focused our efforts on an increased sustainability lens. Globally, consumers spend $3 trillion on packaged foods every year. Packaged and manufactured foods account for over 70% of our daily caloric intake, have a significant impact on chronic disease for the majority of eaters, and produce millions of tons of plastic package waste, greenhouse gas emissions, and water usage that is detrimental to our environment at a global and very dire scale. To start to unpack this problem, well, there are over 38,000 people per every one food scientist, food technologist worldwide. So you can imagine why making great food products is hard. And because we haven't pushed enough to solve food in its state of research and data, companies spend months and years improving or launching new products into the market. Today, the average manufacturing and packaged food company can take years to get a healthy and sustainable product to the market. And with our software and existing cohort of customers, we've found some test trials down more than 78%, while we still help companies meet their overall sustainability and packaging and health goals for their products. We started with the low-hanging fruit, building a well-designed workflow and product management system, getting all information out of spreadsheets, PDFs, emails, and into the cloud. And over the past 18 months, we've aggressively pulled, cleaned, created billions of actionable ingredient and product insights that connect with leading management tools like SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft, and more. For example, we saved major beverage company more than 4 months of research on new ingredient formulations as well as packaging changes that helped them save over 14,000 pounds of packaging in a 6-month period. And in the wake of COVID, this is significant timing. As the world's global supply chains need more automation and intelligence than ever, we are starting to see countries look inward and develop their own initiatives around food sustainability and security. As these supply chains decrease and loading times as well as logistics change rapidly, we're able to tell our customers about products that are impacted not only on the health level, but also the water scores and many other key areas preparing for 2021, which is going to be a year focused on sustainability for many companies. And that's why Journey Foods, compared to our competitors, is really braced to meet the growing needs and demands of consumers as well as goals of companies. As I mentioned, this $3 trillion market, $288 billion in R&D spent every year on IT and data. And we have large growth targets. Today, our companies are spending a range from 2.8 thousand to over 180K per year with our range of services. And we've seen a tremendous amount of ROI that we've put into the system. The savings is over 3x here. So you expect to put 100K in. You'll find more than 300K in workforce savings, decision savings, sustainability savings, purchasing decision savings. And we would love to dive into that with more demos. We launched a public beta in September 2020. Since then, we've helped customers remanufacture almost 3 million units, and that number is rapidly growing. We've raised 1.5 million and we'll be closing more than 4 million this year. And that's what's most exciting about what we've done here at Journey Foods is we've brought on a very diverse team of engineers and food scientists, as well as food leaders, to think holistically about how we can build a platform that's braced for change. And I would say here, I'm very, very excited to continue to think through how our platform can be impactful on a sustainability scale. We are measuring today with sustainable developmental goals, as well as EPA and other methodologies that we've developed, ways to save water in food production, ways to save and optimize packaging, create new concepts in packaging, and we're really excited to continue to share the platform, and hopefully we can present and demo to many participants here today.
I love the idea of food design, so that's Journey Foods. Everyone, if anyone's interested in connecting, please use the poll. Let us know if you're interested in an email connection. Now we have one more announcement at the end, but really quick, just a friendly reminder that we have that networking session. Link is in the chat. We'll see you there. Really quickly, upcoming events around sustainability. We have our End Plastic Waste platform who's launching in Shanghai, which is a huge announcement. Feel free to join. Link to join that event is also in the chat. And then in December, we'll have a Future of Finance is Green event all around how financial services and financial industry is driving sustainability. All right, everybody, that wraps up the content for today. Thank you so much for joining. This net zero movement is amazing to watch, and we're seeing so much innovation come into the space from the corporate side, from the startup side. If you are someone who wants to get more involved in plug and play sustainability, to be more sustainable, to reach your net zero goals, feel free to reach out. My email is right there on the screen, nicholas@pnptc.com. Also, if you're a startup in this space, bringing a really unique solution to drive this net zero transition, feel free to reach out as well. And I will see everyone in the networking session. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.